Hey, what's going on everyone? Alex with the World of Whasian channel. And behind us is our desktop shrimp cube that is not on a desk, it's on a column, but it was formerly on a desk. And it is now 1 year old at this point. We've done a lot with this tank and we're gonna deep dive into it, see how it's doing, and give it a little trim and just do some fun things here and there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. Before we get any further into this video, I just want to take the time to show off this awesome lantern here. This little basket lantern that I got from IKEA. It looks awesome in this corner, it looks great with the green, and me and Katie have been hanging all of the artwork that we had on the wall in the previous place. We've been hanging it up here. And this corner is really coming together. I love the way that aquascapes look with good art on the wall, and it's just a whole thing, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's coming. Slowly but surely, that's for sure. Alright, so we're here on my favorite corner of the living room. This is the end of my couch, and it's also obviously very close to this cube aquarium, and it just is awesome. This it's just a great place to read and doom scroll. Starting at the top of the aquarium here, we have 2 peace lilies and some pothos, and these do a great job of filtering the water. That said, I still do weekly water changes on this tank, especially because it's so small. Smaller tanks are more prone to parameter changes and swings and whatnot, so yep, weekly water changes, but very small ones at that. Moving on the top of the water, we also have Brazilian pennywort, which is taken over once more. For those of you who have been following this aquarium for quite some time, you'll know that for a while I actually had a bunch of it, and then I ended up removing it, and a tiny little clipping in there ended up kind of growing back, and now it's back in full force. And if you'll notice, we actually have a flower growing out of it, which is pretty remarkable. This is the first time I've ever had a flower grow on a piece of Brazilian pennywort. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm just going to let it grow, and we'll see how long it lasts. So yeah, moving on. Obviously we have the little land feature on this cube, which is one of my favorite aspects of this little tank here. It's a piece of driftwood sticking out of the water, and on there we have some Taiwan moss, some asparagus fern, a little tiny piece of hydrocotyle tripetita japan that I was able to get from a friend. And then we have some, I think it's rabbit's foot fern that is, yeah, just chilling in there. And I love this little land feature in this aquarium. There's so much plant variety on this little tiny piece sticking out of the water there. And moving on down below the surface of the water, we have Liliopsis brasiliensis, also known as microsword, even more Taiwan moss, which happens to be choking out the microsword. So we'll be trimming that back here in a second. And then we have dwarf sagittaria, and then on the driftwood we have Nubius non-petite, as well as a bunch of different varieties of Bucephalandra, which I'm not entirely sure which kinds of Buse plant they are, but if you know, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, that is everything we have going on in here. Pretty big variety of plants for such a small tank, and it's really just a gift that keeps on giving. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and carefully remove the peace lilies and some of the other plants that we have coming out of the top, and just kind of get a good look at what's going on in the bottom and give it a little trim. So as far as feeding all the shrimp and the snails in here, I've been feeding them basically whatever I can get my hands on, just a variety of different dry foods, frozen goods as well, such as like frozen daphnia, baby brine shrimp, and today we're feeding them spinach. A lot of people, when they're first getting into the hobby, they seem to be sold on the idea that you look up the one thing that you can feed your shrimp or your fish, and a lot of times, you know, say for instance somebody learns that their fish really like baby brine shrimp, and then they just feed them baby brine shrimp for the rest of their life. And while you can technically get away with that, especially due to the biodiversity of a natural ecosystem aquarium where you might have a lot of microfauna and algae, it's always good to just feed them a nice varied diet, and it's going to prolong the lifespan as well. So yeah, if you can, try to feed a varied diet to your livestock. Don't just feed them one thing over and over again. Alright, so right now here is what the cube is looking like at the moment. It's looking a lot more bare on the top. And you can actually just see just how tall this asparagus fern has gotten. Really glad to see it work. And you can also see the whole island feature and how much is going there as well. So here's our bucket full of our peace lily that we took out. And then we have all of the Brazilian pennywort. I'm going to try my best to keep this intact. There's the flower right there. But yeah, we'll try to put this back in the aquarium, and it's kind of finicky to work with because it's just a big mess, big clump of plants. But we're going to try to save this, and we are going to go ahead and give this a trim, get all of this Taiwan moss out of here. Well, not all of it, but yeah, as you can see, it's completely choking out the microsword, the Liliopsis brasiliensis down here. So let's go ahead and clean this tank up. Look at that. Alright, well, there we have it. Look at all this Taiwan moss that we got out of there. Yeah, that's a lot. And that is all just a result of me trimming this top section here and letting the moss fall into here and just letting it grow. So let me know what I should do with this. So at the moment we are trimming this mossy patch once more in this cycle will repeat itself. And since we didn't do so last time, I'm just going to go ahead and trim this dwarf Sagittaria as well. Give space for the microsword to grow. And once again, we can now see everything that is inside this cube. Pretty stark difference from before, if you ask me. Let me know which one you like more in the comments down below. The trimmed back version or the wildly overgrown version with pennywort and everything else coming out of it. Alright, we are resuming filling up the cube, and as you saw, I try to put the pennywort back in such a way that it preserved the way that it looked before, where it was kind of just growing out of control, growing out of the tank. Pennywort is really hard to kind of finesse, so it's all tangled up, and over time it'll kind of just situate itself, because it is in its best interest to kind of grow out of the water, especially in this aquarium. So that's what's up. And as you can see, I don't have the pothos in here anymore, and I removed the other piece slowly. That's going to go in another tank. So yeah, this cube is looking really nice, all cleaned up, and yeah, we're just going to keep filling it up here. Alright, so that concludes for our little maintenance session on this little cube here. Just basically took out a ton of the Taiwan moss that was choking out everything else in here. Trimmed back the dwarf Sagittaria, trimmed out the Taiwan moss on the little island feature, and trimmed some of the Brazilian pennywort as well. And we removed one of the peace lily plants. So we're getting pretty close to the end of the video, but there's one more thing that I want to do. So in one of my little jars here, we have a nice little piece of Hygrophila pinnatifida that has been growing immersed for quite some time now. I thought it would be cool to put this on the little island feature. I'm just going to cut a little piece off the top. And here is what we are left with. So I'm not entirely sure how this will play out, but I am hoping that since it's somewhat adapted, granted it was in a little jar, it should do relatively well, especially when surrounded by damp Taiwan moss. Alright, so as far as this plant goes, I'm just going to place this, kind of wedge this into the Taiwan moss on the water's edge here, and just kind of hope that over time it will kind of grasp onto it. It'll grow the roots and it'll just latch onto the wood here. So I'm just going to leave this here, and I'll spray it every so often, and hopefully it'll kind of adapt to this environment. Well, everyone, it's been a really good time, and I hope you all are liking the way that this cube is looking. It's been a year in the making. Nothing really has changed, but I just enjoy documenting this cube, and it's just a gift that keeps on giving. So, as always, let me know in the comments down below what you want to see me do with this aquarium next. Um, Plants you might want to see me add. Perhaps you want to see me try a different variation of shrimp, or whatever have you. Let me know, and it's time for me to move on to the next project. So I'll see you all in the next one.